Hi there, and welcome to episode 69 of the Casual Gamecast, a weekly video game podcast for the everyday gamer, brought to you by your friends at Casual Game Content. I am your sexual passenger this week, Philip Keogh, and I'm joined by the electric, the rugged outdoorsman that is my ever-present co-host, Shane Bowe. Hello, Shane.
Hello.
And we are joined by the sexual animal that is, of course, the man in the blazer. You can't miss him if you tried. Yes, the sexiest man in the business. It is, of course, Ciaran Busby. Hello, my good friend Ciaran.
How are you doing today?
And that's enough creepy stuff. Yes,
I was gone.
Yes.
I was gone from the start.
Yes, my friends, we've made it all the way to episode 69. Can you believe it? 69 episodes in the bag, and we are not too proud to do that thing and lean into the fact that it is episode 69. Yes! So, if you have eyes, you've probably seen that the title of the episode is Sex and Video Games, Does It Ever Work? Something to that line anyway. And that's what we're here to talk about this week, ladies and gentlemen. It is... Here's the thing. Okay, lads, here's the thing. So I was thinking this week, all right, what do we do? Okay, it's episode 69. Do we lean into it? Do we not? I kind of thought the classy move might have been to not do it. But then, who's classy amongst us? So, who are we fooling here? One of us is wearing a mankini. For those of us that are on Videoland watching this with us, one of us is in fact wearing a mankini. As all of the frames in our video seems to be dropping by the moment, I'm thinking that they're mostly being found inside the bulge of that mankini. But I thought to myself, we can't pass up this opportunity to do something sexy, because, we're not going to do that too often. That's not a topic we're going to touch on too often. So, what better time than episode 69? And that didn't mean to rhyme. But, here we are. So, I thought to myself, what do we do? Do we do sexiest characters in gaming? Which is going to be a bonus question for later. So, have a ponder on that as we talk, right? Because I'm going to just quick fire question to you guys before we wrap up. Who do we think the sexiest characters in video games are? But, the main topic of the show this week, of course, is sex and video games. Does it ever work? Now, what do we mean by that? And we're going to get back to the serious topics now, okay? So, what do we actually mean by that? Now, sex in video games has a surprisingly long history. It has never really been done very well. Sometimes better than others. But, this is our opportunity to kind of say, okay, in the, 60 odd years of commercial video games, has it ever been carried off to the point where you went, okay, okay, that was done well. Okay, yeah, that was tasteful. That was acceptable. That was movie level or porno level, whatever you're into. Content, like, does it ever work? So this is what we're here to solve. So, as per usual, I'm going to go around the table and ask the initial question and get the initial, temperature from each one of our guests. And this week, as per usual, I'm going to go to the man no longer in the robe, but in the very rugged, very, very sexually rugged regatta jacket. It is, of course, the main man, Shane Bowe. Shane, sex and video games, does it ever work?
I'm going to start with two things. Number one, if Regattas out there listening would like to sponsor the show or anything,
get them Benjamins.
Yeah, get them Benjamins. And two, Buzz dudes, you're killing me with the sexiness. Like, I mean, from the get-go, I looked over at your screen and I was just like, all these faces you were pulling while Phil was doing the intro, I'm like, I'm gone. I can't even act sexy. It's just...
We have to put a content warning on the video of this. If you are listening in audio land, do check out the video of this on Casual Game Content's YouTube channel, because you do not want to miss the smolder of this man.
Yes. So anyway, back to, does sex in video games work? Yeah, I suppose sometimes it's a weird one. Like, yeah. I was thinking about this today, and I was thinking about like any moments that sprung to mind, and then I was thinking about things like, when you say pick up like a hooker in GTA, and then you just like it cuts to that angle where you can just see the car go like or whatever. I was like, that kind of works a little bit. It's kind of gives it an implication of sex happening without having to actually be graphic or show anything. And then I kind of thought, yeah, that works. But then for the most part in video games, when does it ever really, like, when is it actually displayed on screen?
Yeah, well, this is part of the conversation, I guess. Is like what is the threshold by which you judge whether something works or not? You know, like it's but just you know, off the cuff without examples, because we can go and get more into depth. Like when I say like sex in video games, almost does it have a place more so than does it work? Like, do you feel like to this point in the offerings we've gotten so far, do you feel like sex in video games is kind of something that you would say, yeah, that kind of goes hand in hand with like story, with like sound, with, you know, set dressing, whatever other elements make up a game? Do you think like sexual encounters is kind of like a justifiable, you know, thing in video games just yet?
Yes. A kind of trepidatious yes. It's kind of you know, it I'll get more into it, but for me it very much depends on the context. You know, like some very like in-depth story-heavy games where maybe it deals with a relationship between two characters or something like that, then maybe yes. Mm-hmm. But when it's something kind of like GTA where it's just put in there for the sake of, you know, picking up a hooker, like, you know, and we'll get more in depth into that later. But that's a trepidatious yes is my starting answer.
And is there anything sexier than trepidatiousness? Ciaran, what about you?
Yes,
sex in video games, does it work? Does it not?
100% in the camp that yes, it does, and for the reason
that's confidence right there.
Well, I'm very sex positive, but no.
Can I also be sex positive, please?
I kind of substitute that with that, like kind of two or three different factors. One is actually touching on the topic from last week, which was like kind of be seen as a traditional form of art, or, you know, a proper term of art, and kind of be seen as a proper type of media, whatever. And my kind of look at that is that like every other form of media pretty much has sex all over it, as long as it's, you know, relevant to the story, the set, and everything as well. I mean, like obviously you're not going to have it in a kid's game like Mario and Peach. You aren't going to suddenly, I mean, like maybe on DeviantArt or something, but you're not going to see it like in game.
Maybe.
Although who knows? Yeah, mature Mario could be a good one.
You know, we all grew up with Mario.
Rated M.
You know, Mario's in his like 50s now. Like, you know, maybe it's time.
But I mean, like films throughout the years, like, you know, there is definitely an element of sex and relationship that goes hand in hand, and like to really get that across in quite a succinct way is, I think, a very good way at kind of establishing it as being a more mature and art form. And then of course on the other side, it's also kind of cool, but especially seeing as like, you know, you've got the likes of this game, which I'm going to talk heavily about today, which will just flash my N7 tattoo for everyone. But yes,
which is placed right in the midst of a shaved pectoral, just buried. I'm trying to paint a picture for the audio listeners. Buried just underneath at the finest of black silk shirts, adorned under the finest of white suit jackets with a nice little red cravat in the pocket. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't subscribed to Casual Game Content over on YouTube, now's your chance, my friends. But sorry, Ciaran.
You flatter me.
That's why we have you, man. But it's the visuals. I'm only joking. Sorry, I'll shut up now. I'm going away. Bye.
Yeah, we actually mute you when you're on the audio version. It's just here for the video. No, I would honestly say that there is 100% a place for sex in video games, as long as it's done right in the right context.
Sure. Yeah. And personally, I think the same. I think you hit the nail on the head. It goes very much hand in hand with last week's conversation, which is, you know, is it a legitimate, you know, form of media? Ergo, it kind of needs to touch on sex at some point, because sex is a part of human life. It's a part of our existence. Therefore, it needs to be covered in some shape or form. Is it done well? Is another question, you know, and that's kind of what we can dive into here. But I think we can kind of almost put to rest the, does it ever need to happen? Like I don't think any of us are thinking like, okay, we know even at this point here, none of us are advocating for getting rid of sex in games. Is that true? Yeah. So we're all in the same camp there. Okay. So what I propose then is, rather than trying to work out why we feel that way, I think that's just a kind of a mature way to feel that, like, we're just not ashamed of sex, and like, even though its examples are a bit all over the place, it could be done a lot better, I'm sure. But like, rather than dive into why we came to the obvious conclusion that a part of life should be included in a medium, let's dive in instead into when it has shown itself, when it struck us, oh, there's sex in video games now, and how it was done and whether it was done well or not. Shane, I'm going to start with you because you had the first example, which if you say to anyone on the street, what's the first time you witnessed sex in a video game? I'd say 90% of people are going to say like GTA 3 specifically.
Oh, probably, yeah. Yeah, I'd be inclined to agree with you. Like, you know, those like strip clubs and the picking up a hooker in the car, and then the car does that little like rock. This car's a rocking, don't come a knocking thing.
Yeah. And then you look into the car and there's nobody moving. They're just like
they're both sitting in like passenger seat, driver seat, just.
Which is bizarre. They're not even looking at each other. It's a crazy, like, and their hands are down by their sides, so there's not even any hand action going on. But like, it is the first thing that comes to mind for most people, including myself. You know, when I'm thinking of sex and games.
Yeah, it was one of the first things that came to mind when this topic was mentioned a few days ago. It was like, yeah, that's the first. My brain automatically went to GTA straight away, first thing, without even a moment's thought. And then I started thinking about other games, and like a lot of ones that came to mind to me were actually quite story heavy. And any time I've experienced sex in games has been in very narrative driven games. Like, for example, I'm thinking of, which is kind of a nod to a funny thing in the books, but the stuffed unicorn in Witcher 3 with Yennefer. But like, there is a perfectly valid logical reason for Geralt and Yennefer to get together in the game, because they have a relationship. They have a romantic relationship throughout the story of The Witcher.
Absolutely.
So there's a place for it. You don't see any, you know, you might maybe see some Geralt ass or something, but like that's about it. And then it cuts to black, and you know they're up smoking cigarettes under a silk blanket or whatever.
Which is exactly how if I can interject, and you know, I don't want to overtake this, but that's exactly how I want it to be for the foreseeable future. That like, I don't necessarily want to see CG ass and CG, you know, private smashing, and you know, having to see that, because I can't think of what the game is called, but I think there was one out there that they went down that road and it was not pretty. But like, the actual build up to the sex, the dialogue, the relationship, the will they, won't they, and then the suggestion of sex, and then the afterwards when they're having their cigarette conversation or whatever. That's lovely, and The Witcher is actually probably my gold standard for like how to handle it. If we're just not mature enough in the medium to do it any better than I think what The Witcher has done so far. If you get me, I'm sure we can do better, but I'm struggling to think of when. Sorry, Ciaran, I think I cut you off.
Yeah, I think that's kind of like the best way to do it, even in other forms of media too. I mean, like, there's kind of rarely that you will see, apart from maybe a bit of rolling about and kissing and stuff, and that's very suggestive as to like, oh, they just about to make love.
In the hay
and
bales,
then it kind of fades to black, wake up, do what you do, and like, you know, like my big example of that is a lot of the Bond films. Like, you know, everyone kind of says like they're full of sex, but I mean, like, they're not really to a certain extent. I mean, like, there's a good bit of kissing and cuddling, like, but that's about it.
Sexism, less sex.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a sexism.
That's kind of one thing I wanted to touch on as well. Then is just like, there's a difference definitely between like sex in video games and then over sexualization of characters, which you know is a different, like, I'm thinking kind of Bayonetta there as well, which is very much just like a kind of an unrealistic male gaze kind of idea of what a woman should look like or does look like, and that. Yeah,
like, you can probably see the gears in my head turning. Like, I thought about that too, and I had the same initial reaction when it came to Bayonetta in particular. Because to anyone who's not familiar, Bayonetta is essentially, you know, Platinum Games' answer to Devil May Cry, where you play as a witch whose clothes and all of her powers are manifested from her long black hair. And she is very, very vivacious and, you know, buxom, and she's flirty, and she's not afraid to use it type of a character. But the one thing I will say about Bayonetta is she's written well. You know, she's not... She knows what she is, you know, and she plays off of that. And it's funny in the sense that it's not... Do you know the way you see characters like this? I'm thinking of ones like, remember the Xbox 360 early game Bullet Witch, which was kind of Bayonetta with a gun and no personality. That was just the same idea executed poorly, and it was gross. you know. And even as a man, I could look at that and go, that is gross, you know. But I know many women who idolize Bayonetta because she is an empowered woman who, yes, is like over-sexualized, but she is choosing to be over-sexualized in order to have fun with her power, you know what I mean? And it's kind of like, yes, it's a complex narrative, and yes, there's a lot to look into here. But I will say, in Bayonetta's defense, because of the execution, it's not as bad.
Interesting. But we can all agree that Peach is definitely the most over-sexualized character. Like Princess Peach, gee.
Poor Peach.
Or Zelda.
Yeah. Like, again, it's like the Bond thing. That's just, it's like sexism over sexualization, because they're just damsels, you know, like they're, apart from, well, I suppose Zelda has the whole turning into Sheik thing, so that's
true.
She kind of has her own thing going on. But Peach, like Peach has had one game of her own, and it's pretty good. and that has been it. She's just been like, you know, essentially been Save Me Mario for the last 30-40 years, and the odd time as a player 4, you know. It's like, it's completely unfair.
But to Buzz's point, I get what he means about like sexism as well. Like, you know, you have games like Dead or Alive, and, you know, like you said, Bullet Witch, and like I remember years and years ago, back when video game like journalism and like conventions and stuff was still kind of the Wild West, and they were like showing off a demo for the new Dead or Alive, and they were literally using words like jiggle physics.
Yes, I remember jiggle physics.
And you're like, wow, that is not cool. Like, that is not, like, that is just, you know what I mean? Like,
I remember those days, especially like the Xbox 360 and PS3 being shown off, and they're like, look how many ripples there are on this fighter's breasts as they move. It's like, wow, is that really what we're doing? And people lapped it up. I remember those games doing very well for that reason, you know.
Oh yeah, they even spawned a movie franchise, you know.
Oh my god, I completely forgot about
one
that
movie, possibly. Maybe there's a franchise, maybe there's one movie. I can't really remember. But there is definitely a movie.
Is that a Usain Bolt joined?
That sounds like something that would be, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, probably.
Anyway, I had the girl from Tokyo Drift. It was one of the Fast and Furious ladies. Anyway, yeah, I think Dead or Alive was very much the example of how not to do this tastefully.
Yes, exactly.
You know,
exactly.
It's like the poster child of it. Do you remember like the beach volleyball game?
Yeah, once again, it was like, it's all the same stuff.
The loosest excuse for a video game, which was just look at our jiggle physics, the game.
yeah, it is. It's ridiculous. Like, and that's when it's done wrong. I think when it's done better is when stuff like, which I'm sure Buzz is going to get to, is like the kind of options RPGs give you for romancing characters and stuff. And BioWare has been very good at that.
Absolutely.
And been very good at romancing whoever you like, regardless of sexual orientation or, you know, male, female, male, whatever you want to do. Like, you know, the option is for you to do, which has been quite, I'm sure, empowering for lots of different sexual oriented people who play games. I can't speak on behalf of, like, you know, straight people, gay people. I can't speak on behalf of everyone, but I'm sure when you're younger and you're maybe not out to your family or whatever, playing a game where it allows you to romance someone of the same sex that's your jam or whatever. That's a terrible way of phrasing that. You know what I mean? Yeah. Move on. Stop.
Sexual libertarian Shane Bowe, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes. Let's have the three middle. No, I don't want to say middle aged, but three like adult white guys.
Calling me middle aged? What age do you think I am?
I know I'm not even middle aged. What I was getting at was, let's not have the three like, you know, adult white
three
guys.
White guys from Ireland
different.
Tell people about how to feel about, you know, cis natures.
Yeah. You know what I'm getting at here. I'm digging a giant hole for myself.
It's true, and I think that, like, we're getting to a point where that cross-pollination of gender options in romance options in games is less. See, the thing I will 100% throw over to you now, because Buzz, you are obviously the biggest BioWare fan of the three of us, and I think you'll have a better take. But the one thing that always kind of made me feel a bit weird about BioWare was you could romance everyone, and is that nearly worse? You know, because at that point your people are kind of pastiches of whatever you choose to be. They're not their own people. Like, because in the real world you can't romance it. You know, it is people have genders and people have preferences and people have you know. But like, it was a step in the right direction. But Bowe, or not Bowe, sorry, Buzz, please. There's too many B's in this podcast. Buzz, please, you know, enlighten everyone.
Of course.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to go back to the original question first of all, because I'm about to get on to Mass Effect now. But whenever you said like the first kind of like view of sex, I was going to initially, and the same as Bowe as well, the first game that came to my head wasn't Grand Theft Auto, but was Mass Effect. And then I was kind of thinking a bit more, and I was like, oh, the Metal Gear Solid 3 have a little bit with Eva and Snake, and then anyway, that was a different side.
It's a little will they, won't they?
Yeah. But then that was again a good relationship, and I feel like there was definitely a scene at some point in a cave.
Oh, there was
Yeah,
where she zips down her top and then gets on, straddles him, and then it cuts to black, and he's like asleep, and she's getting out of there. I remember now.
That made a big impression on like 7-year-old me. But
yeah,
anyway,
I was super into 70s spy movies at that point. Yeah.
yeah. James Bond. I was like, whoa, this is
Look
a
at
Bond
the jacket,
game.
man. It speaks for itself.
But yes, Mass Effect, I think, was definitely my first kind of real experience of like being able to get that exploration and to see who you can romance and stuff. And to counter your point, there actually are quite a few whole host of characters you can't flirtate with, and then there is also, if you don't agree with them or align with them, they also do shut you down. So I think it's more so like that there is that many options to do, and then there's also a few different things as well. Like in the second one, or sorry, the first one of the big ones is that Liara is kind of falls head over heels for Shepard, but well, not really head over heels, probably just anyway. But so let's say for me myself, I usually in the first game romance Ashley, which is the kind of the human and begin, and she's the kind of meme of the space racist, but she does mature throughout the thing thanks to Paragon Shepard. But yeah, there is this kind of a spat then where you kind of have to choose between the two, and you know, it's a you know, Ashley's like, I thought we were having something going on here, like what's going on, and you have to pick between the two of them, whatever. So there is that kind of limitation of options in one playthrough of who you can and can't romance based on whatever way you're playing the game. Then of course there are even you know, for some characters, complete lockouts. So Caden, for example, in the third game, he, I believe, is bisexual. Could be wrong in saying that. He's definitely of a persuasion. I think both male and female Shepard can romance him. But
yeah, I think female could after the first game. I think in the first game he's strictly a male relationship. Am I remembering that
he's
right?
strictly straight in the first one. See, I don't think any LGBTQA plus options came in until the third game.
I remember there being some controversy about him switching sides.
Yeah, which is probably just a lot of you know, I'm not going to say anything just in case we upset people. But yes,
absolutely.
It's of course okay to be bisexual and have a preference in the first game and change over to the third one because you've fully.
Oh, sorry. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Jesus, in case that came off wrong. No, that's not what I meant at all. Well, I just meant more so people got unjustifiably angry.
Yes,
about it.
yes.
I don't mean they had any reason for it. Like, yeah.
No, 100% not, because I think that's what at the time people were like, oh, he's like not buying it. Like, he wasn't buying the first one and stuff, which is just like people can change.
No, absolutely. And thank you for pointing that out.
No worries. But yes, so it's really like quite an interesting one whenever there is kind of that option. Yes, there is so many options you can pick in any one playthrough, but for me, it's always been Ashley in the first one, then Miranda, and then Miranda again, because that's, you know, I found my true love.
Sure.
And I cannot for the fathom myself go with anybody else apart from Miranda on a playthrough, just for whatever reason, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I think that their romance is quite good in the sense that, like, you know, you're building up this whole time, and you know she's the Cerberus, real like empowered female role, and then you kind of see that little kind of like, I suppose like fragility maybe whenever she kind of has doubts about herself, and you kind of encourage her not to, because even though she was made to be the most perfect human being on earth, which I mean, like, she is, I wish I had my mug here, but it says currently romancing Miranda Lawson on it. That like even their sex scene, quote unquote, does end up kind of like that same Metal Gear Solid 3 scene where it's just like a little bit of a straddle, hug and a kiss, and then that's fade to black, and you know, you go about your daily business after that. Just, I would say Mass Effect is definitely one of the big ones for me of being a good representation of sex and done in a right way, or the right way.
Absolutely. And I think as you were talking about it, it reminded me of a lot of those moments. Even like, and to correct my earlier statements, there is that lockout, because I do remember in the second game, the character whose name I can never remember, the lady with the shaved head and the tattoos.
Jack.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember as male shepherd trying to romance her and being shocked that she was just like, you're not my type, you know. I think what I'm more so thinking of is Bethesda RPGs, where it's kind of like I can create any race of character, and I can not only pick a gender, but I can create like, you know, lizard men and stuff. And it's just like, you know, the romance options are just plentiful because they are all available to you. If I'm remembering, maybe Fallout 4 shakes things up a bit, maybe New Vegas does, I'm not 100% sure, but I can't remember being turned down for any reason apart from, oh, you blew up, you know, Nuketown or whatever, oh yeah, I can't go with you. So, you know, like those arbitrary reasons or whatever it is.
It's just like in rural villages, you know, you blew up the cattle shed, like I can't go out with you. My father's gonna kill me if I go out with you.
Did you dance with the Bull McCabe? I can't dance with you. Absolutely. So like,
you're from a different parish to me.
They'll be talking down the village. I think, yeah, it's like in terms of relationships, I think it's never been a better time for gaming. Like I think I suspect that if we went back to PS2 days or PS3 days even, you know, you're starting to see that type of stuff happen. But like in the PS4 onwards, Mass Effect being that, you know, one outlier, like I think we are starting to see in most games, like, you know, that are where you have a bit of agency, you are building up more relationships. Because what used to irk me before, it goes back to the Grand Theft Auto thing of like, like sex in video games was always a transactional affair. It was always, you know, find the person and press X, or, you know, find a person and talk to them for like 30 seconds and then press X. And it just felt like empty and not needed, you know? And that's kind of why I think in my head, The Witcher is like my gold standard, because like my girlfriend laughs at me every time I replay that game, which is probably 4 or 5 at this point. Because I always try and never succeed because I refuse to follow a guide to romance everyone to get that last cutscene. I'm not into that type of thing generally, but it's just they put so much care into it in The Witcher that I'm just like, I want that cutscene where like he's managed to get them all at some point, and I always fail. But you know, the thing is, you're so invested because you've spent so much time with each of these people, and you as a person are generally like, you might be going like, oh, if I get Triss now, I'm going to get a trophy. And you go in with that mentality. But then within like an hour of mission going around with Trish, you're like, oh, she's a really cool character. I can't wait to go back to town and talk to Triss. You know, it's like, oh my God, am I falling for Triss? Is this happening right now? You know, like, and that's kind of why it's that relationship building that is so hard to find. It's in Mass Effect. It's in The Witcher. I'm sure it's in a Dragon Age game. I've never played them, you know, but I'm sure.
Yeah. I was saying in the green room, I remember in playing Dragon Age Inquisition, and one of the party members you can have is like this, like 7 foot tall, like purple tiefling guy with horns.
Oh,
and stuff.
I would be all over that.
And I remember like, you know, finishing a mission one time, and I was like playing as like this little like dwarf bearded, like, you know, dude with an axe or whatever, Gimli style, and he's like, you know, after we killed some dragon or whatever, he's like, so how about me and you, like, you know, go down to the tavern or whatever. I'm paraphrasing, but you know, and I'm like, this it came out left field for me, you know. I was like, whoa, what, you're like big purple dragon man and I'm just this little dwarf guy, what's going on here? Because I'd never played like a BioWare kind of game up until that. I've dabbled in Mass Effect, but I've never really gone hardcore into Mass Effect.
And you went hardcore this time.
I put a lot of time into Dragon Age actually, and they do it too. But once again, it's BioWare, so it's
my tattoo
from the same school.
My tattoo just got like one of those Harry Potter moments where I felt it into scar or whatever. It's like,
It's white hot. It's burning through his shirt, ladies and gentlemen. It's BioWare. You have to give it up to them. I do. I don't know. I don't really like run in a lot of, you know, circles to be able to talk in any definitive way about how people in more marginalized communities feel about BioWare's implementation.
Yeah.
From my like white cis perspective, it seems like it's quite diverse. But is that the shared narrative? Does anybody here have an idea on that, or should we just like back away from that topic?
No, I'm not going to speak about stuff I don't understand.
I don't think I have enough statements in either, but I would say that like one of the underrepresentations maybe of Mass Effect at present, because hopefully Mass Effect 5 will change that, is kind of the trans community, and there hasn't really been much there. But who knows? In the next one, there might be a bit more representation there.
Hopefully. There wasn't really an awful lot of trans. Maybe by the time Andromeda came around, and I'm not saying there wasn't trans communities. Of course there was, but you know, the world, rightfully so, has opened its eyes more to the trans community in the last, you know, I'd say 10 years, but the last 5 years in particular, it has been very much, you know, we demand to be seen, and as rightfully so. So then I would hope, yes, as you say, Mass Effect 5 comes around, but like, I'm just wondering, would there have been an incentive to do it before the last 10 years? So maybe Andromeda should have had more representation, but like, I think there's been so few games that could do it over the past 10 years, but not to give anybody an excuse or anything, but I'm just trying to think what examples of games apart from Andromeda could that have been an option, you know? Oh, hello.
Yeah.
I have a Bluetooth speaker here, ladies and gentlemen, and it speaks like a valley girl. It's weird. But I really hope that that this does get corrected, and you know, people who deserve to be seen do obviously deserve to be seen.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
Definitely.
So,
however, on the sexy bit, what I would also like to bring up is because Grand Theft Auto has been talked about at length now, I suppose, is San Andreas, because there is sort of like that multiple girlfriend womanizing kind of aspect to it, where you just go to their house, take them out for a wee drive, maybe have a wee shoot about, and then go back to the house and do whatever.
Yep.
But of course, the controversial one from that, which really kind of in the 2000s shone a bit of a light on gaming and some of the other aspects of it that probably shouldn't be there. And even though it was just like a mod in the background that wasn't actually like modded properly or whatever, it wasn't included in the game, hot coffee was also a huge thing.
Yeah. Amazingly, the controversy that came around hot coffee and the recent re-release of those games had hot coffee still in there.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Like Christ.
But that's two examples right there of, you know, what we were saying earlier, where it's like it's always been a kind of a transactional affair, where it's like pick up lady, literally meters pop up that's like, you know, Chloe's likeness of you has gone up 10 points or whatever, and then you do that, rinse and repeat. And then the other example of hot coffee being trying to put something into a game that represents the act of sex, and then kind of going, we're not ready for this yet, and pulling it out, but just leaving it there for modders to find. San Andreas is a great example of it. Are we at that point now where we've kind of discussed everything we could really discuss about our own perspectives on this now, but just kind of maybe dive into a couple of examples? So like San Andreas is a good one, but like a couple of like other examples maybe of it, because like I'm always tempted. Has anybody here ever played Custer's Revenge?
No.
Right, Custer's Revenge is hilarious in the sense that it's awful. It's incredibly offensive to everybody. Every demographic that could be represented in Custer's Revenge is offended. But it is probably the first example of sex in video games, full stop. It's an Atari 2600 game, and it was a massively offensive thing. But you were essentially a cowboy. You have to get from A to B without getting shot, I believe. And there is an Indian lady tied to a pole, and your idea is to get to this Indian lady, and when you get there, you fornicate with her. That is the reward.
Wow.
Whilst she's tied to the pole. Yeah. Incredibly offensive. Incredibly wrong. You know? But like, if we're talking sex and games, that's the instigation point. And to go from something that was so base, so offensive, so wrong, and then we're at a point where we're kind of like talking about the nuances of the relationship conversations in Mass Effect and The Witcher 3. We've come a long way since the Atari 2600. I just want to put that on the record, is that Custer's Revenge to where we are today, huge improvements. You know?
Yes. I was going to bring up as another in poor taste example, Leisure Suit Larry. If anyone remembers Leisure Suit Larry.
Yes.
Never played it, but yes, I do have.
Yes, and Leisure
You're
Suit Larry
cosplaying as him right now.
You kind of are a little bit, actually. Leisure Suit Larry is basically, it's very much of the teenage movie American Pie kind of like, You know, it's just all about how do I have sex with a girl?
Gotta get
like,
some.
How do I?
Gotta get
gotta
some.
get some.
By
I
any
am a horny
means.
teenager, and I gotta get some, no matter how much. One thing I will say, while I don't condone the game, and it's not like it's in really poor taste, I have to give the sequel props for one of the greatest video game titles of all time. There's a current sequel on the PS4 right now that you can walk into your local game store and buy, called Leisure Suit Larry: Wet Dreams Don't Dry.
Oh,
It is awful, and that is on the shelf, like, for anyone to walk in and see. Wow. And like, but it's also, for the type of game that is a great sequel to.
That is pretty inspired titling for an awful game.
Yes, it's inspired. Even though I don't condone the game, it is inspired marketing. I will say that. But yeah, Leisure Suit Larry is another one of those poor examples where, like you said, Phil, it's about having sex by any means necessary, because you are the horny teenager who's off to college or whatever, and you have to get some with everybody possible, like anything that moves, you know.
That's hilarious.
Another good example maybe of it being in both poor taste and maybe, you know, good taste, it depending on how the player does it, is the Sims series, because you know, Woohoo is definitely a big, and that actually was probably my first interaction with it being in the game, but just because it was called Woohoo and it was just like a wrestle about in the bed under the covers.
Yeah, it was like a Looney Tunes like scuffle where it was almost like, you know, a cloud of dust and just arms and legs coming out.
And you know, that obviously serves a purpose in the game if you want your Sims to, you know, have a baby and make a new Sim. But yeah, it's a weird one, because you can also just be like a big dirty fella going about doing it with half the town and have 200 sim babies.
Yeah, I suppose when there's a kind of the beauty and the downfall of The Sims, like you said, is that it's completely up to you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because Sims is a digital dollhouse. It is like, you know, action figures. You know, do what you want with them. And maybe as a kid, people had their action figures. Like, they maybe had like a Ken doll going around sleeping with all the different variations of Barbie or whatever. You know what I mean?
my Buzz Lightyear and my sister's not Bratz dolls, I can't remember what they were. They had a great time now, somewhere into there. You couldn't pick between the two of them.
We were literally just talking about that the other day, me and my partner coming back with our shopping, and I don't know how we got onto the topic of, like, you know, did you ever, you know, look at your Barbies, you know, bits, or your Action Man's bits or whatever when you were a kid? And I was kind of like, I never actually had, you know, posable dolls as a kid. It wasn't something I had. I had like trucks and I had like the outdoors and stuff. I had video games, you know, but I never had like an Action Man or something with pants, you know what I mean? So it didn't really happen. And she was gonna tell me, like, oh, like any normal healthy child, like, you would look. And like, my first thought is like, if that is your expectation, you must think that what you see then when it actually happens is the most grotesque thing in the world, because like, you were expecting this beautiful shiny, just, you know, flat thing, and all of a sudden there's this like monstrosity flopping in the wind, or whatever your preference is, you know. it's a stark contrast, you know.
Yes.
Just putting that out there. But yeah, any other like strong examples of sex in video games that might come to our listeners' minds?
One that recently came to memory actually was, we've talked about it quite a bit on the show before. The Last of Us 2 has quite a lot of like,
you're right, yeah,
romance and stuff. You have Abby and what's his name, who I cannot remember for the life of me. You have Ellie and what's her name?
Other name who's the knife name can't come to.
You know, you have stuff like that. Although I think like there was a like semi-graphic scene with Abby and the guy
graphic.
on the boat. Yeah,
it
on the boat. That was kind of like, I remember the Ellie and the girl one, like, it was very much like we've talked about. There was a bit of cuddling and kiss, and then it cut to black, and then it cuts back to them like smoking a joint in their underwear or whatever, you know. But the other one with Abby was kind of graphic a little bit, and it was a bit like a lot of that game is graphic, you know. That
like,
game
to use an offensive term, like the word raw dog comes to mind. Do you know, it's pretty graphic, like consensual, but graphic.
That's another one that came to mind recently. But that game is graphic in so many levels in different, you know, things. So but yeah, that's another one that came to mind very recently, and that's a very story heavy game. Like it is the story heaviest game out there, you know, and they do it so right and so wrong in some respects.
I'd say as well, then kind of pulling over, like, this isn't, it's not really sex per se, but I mean, like, in terms of romance and like real meaningful connection and relationship, which is, you know, maybe a lead up to sex, or like, you know, what you need anyway for a successful relationship.
The more interesting part, really.
Exactly, yeah. Is a great example for me is the Life is Strange series. So like the first one, Before the Storm, and then the most recent True Colors one, which again has quite very, very strong LGBTQI plus representation across the board. And to me, like they're like games that always stick with me as being like, that was one of the games where like I found every decision so difficult and weighted and emotional, and then the relationships built up with those characters, which those, you know, choices always kind of impact, was just remarkable.
Now, just to wrap this one up with a bow, because we've kind of talked about like well, we've kind of walked around and we've talked about this in every aspect to say, you know, sex in video games, is there a place for it? Yes. Is it always handled well? No. And we have talked about examples. However, very quickly, because I know we're running on, and we do need to take a break and then come back for the bonus question, is what do we feel, if we have any idea, and if you don't have any idea, there's no need to vamp, you can just say, no, I don't know, but what do we feel is needed? What's the step that, you know, if you could whisper into the ear of BioWare or into any video game developer to say, this is what you need to do to sell sex that step further, like what do we want next? You know, what will help the medium in this way? It's a hard question.
I don't think I do have an answer for that. You know, like give us more of what works well so far, and you know, I mean, like the more graphics get kind of better and stuff, I mean, like you're going to get more facial expression, more animation, more realistic kind of development of character and stuff. And you know, you don't need to show anything graphic really. So I haven't played The Last of Us. Last of Us Part 2 on the wish list to watch and the playthrough. But I just maybe step away from that and take a leaf out of what traditional media is like. You know, film and TV have done, and how to do that. So just a bit of rolling about, a little bit of more passionate. You know, and don't take inspiration from any of the other industries.
I agree. Like, and it's not from a prude perspective. I don't have a problem with necessarily, you know, sex scenes, and maybe some games do need to have them in order to have that spectrum, so everybody has what they want, I guess. But like, I'm on the same boat as you, Buzz, is that like there's so much more in the range of like build up that expectation than there is in the actual, you know, delivery generally. Even in The Last of Us, which like, I will applaud for being like, well, this is how sex sometimes is. You know, one example is really sweet, one example is really not, but like that is also the real world of sex. So like I applaud them in that sense, but like in the other sense, I couldn't wait for that scene to be over. It was just like, okay, stop now. Okay.
Gosh, I really need to watch this. Like,
it's worth a Google. It's worth a Google. But Shane, what about you? What do you have any suggestions to all game devs out there? Because we know that they're listening. We're going to tell them how to do their job, of course, because we are qualified to do so. Yes, what would you advise that they could do?
I tend to agree with Buzz in that, like, a lot of them are doing it right already. You know, like the games we've talked about that are doing it right, are doing the right thing, and more of that would work well. And if my only one advice to all the game devs listening, all of you, the entire gaming industry, is for the love of God, if you're going to include actual sex in a game, do not make it a quick time event.
Oh God, yeah.
Now
press F to pay respects, press X to get it on.
I was just going to bring it up, and because I only thought of it when we were answering this question, and I was going to throw it in at the end. And, oh, by the way, honorable mention too, God of War.
Yes.
Remember when Aphrodite, I think it was? Yes. And you had to slam circle.
Yeah.
Dear God.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. God of War has not aged well in a lot of respects. Really hasn't.
He's such a redeemable character in the new one, because like he's a caring dad, and he genuinely loved his wife, and he loved his first wife, I think, but like he loved that last one a lot, it seems. And you know, there's a lot of like redeeming things, but like the early God of Wars were so misogynistic and weird.
Oh yeah.
I think that's what makes the new God of War work so well, though.
Yes!
We've seen this matured Kratos who's like not doing all around him or whatever. Like,
that's right. He's grown. Like he's literally grown as a person.
So, it's like a weird example where it's like, yes, if you've made mistakes in the past, maybe they wouldn't be seen today as being good. Like you can take that character and mature them and give them that character development that makes them, it even better, and doesn't maybe, make what has happened in the past any better if you go back and look at that in a singular perspective, but just makes that whole story arc and character arc a lot more fuller.
Kratos has grown more in the last 15 years than Mario has in 40. Just put it that way.
Yeah.
Yes.
Gosh.
Yes, he has.
Damn it, Mario.
Anyway, yeah, I think that there is no right answer to this. I think that art will find a way. I think that there is room for everything. If it's not for you, it doesn't have to be, nor should it be. And that's just the way it is. And I think that a lot of the game developers we were talking about there are doing it right. So, applauds to them. But that has been our discussion on the topic of the week, being sex in video games. Does it work? What do you think? You at home? Yes, you. I'm speaking to you. Look into the comments down below, wherever you're finding this, wherever you're listening to this, and let us know whether you think it works. Or pop over to our socials, our Facebook or our Discord. They are down below in the description, and let us know there. So, very quickly, boys, I do want to... It's a sexy time. It's a sexy cast, When else are we going to get an opportunity to list off what we think are objectively the sexiest characters in games? We don't necessarily have to be sexually attracted to them, but you can look at a character and go, oh, that's a sexy character, So I'm going to say we try our best, very unprepared, to crown the sexiest character after this very commercial break. So if you wouldn't mind, play that thing! Hey there! If you want to keep up with all things casual game content, you can do so in a number of ways. The easiest way to do so is to follow us on all of our socials at Casual Game Co. Not content, because you only get 15 characters, but hey, what can you do? At Casual Game Co. That's at CASUALGAMECO. Can't be any simpler than that. On Twitter, on Instagram, and on Facebook. And when you're at Facebook, look for the group, the Casual Game Community. It's a good bunch. We're going to love you. Come on by. If you could do us a massive favor, like the podcast, review the podcast, and just tell a friend about the podcast. It goes a long way, and you can find all of our content on podcast forums wherever you get your podcasts by searching for Casual Gamecast. Thanks again for all of your help and all of your support. It means the absolute world to us. Now, back to the show. And we are back. Now, ladies and gentlemen, as promised, Buzz has gone away and shown us his cup. So, Buzz, tell us about your cup.
This is my cup. I like it. So, for anybody who can't either see that on the video or for audio listeners, it is a cup, just a regular mug that says relationship status. There are 3 boxes, and beside each box, one says single, taken, both are unchecked, and the last one says romancing Miranda Lawson. And my girlfriend got me for that last birthday last year. And phenomenal. So my first pick off the bat is Miranda Lawson, amazingly sexy.
Hold on, you're jumping the gun. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it is the bonus topic of the show, where we are going to ask who is the sexiest video game character known to man. And we are going to do so off the top of our heads by each of us picking 3 people. We're going to just when we think sexy in games, we think of A, B, and C. And we are all going to whittle those down to 1 people each. Then we're going to take each of our champions and pit them together in order to whittle them down to 1 remaining champion. And they shall be the episode 69 mascot of the Casual Gamecast. Now, back to Buzz, who's going to give us his first option.
Sorry, I jumped the gun.
You're good.
Miranda's just jumping the gun, man.
It is what it is. There's pills for that, man. It's grand.
Yes, Miranda Lawson, number 1, all day, every day. If I could give her all 3 slots, I would.
You dirty devil.
Filth.
I suppose then number 2, no surprise, another Mass Effect character, even though I haven't romanced her yet, is Jack from Mass Effect as well. Very
interesting choice.
Lady. And do you know what? For 3, it's a tough one. It's between Yennefer, even though I haven't played Witcher yet. I've just seen her and been like, I'm definitely going to romance romancer. She looks an awful lot like Miranda too, so it's like, oh my God.
You have a type. It's emerging. Yes.
Yeah. Don't tell my girlfriend. And then my third, I'm gonna go with Eva from or Eva, whatever. I think it was Eva from Metal Gear Solid 3.
Am I wrong in saying you had 4 choices? So there was Miranda, Jack, Yennefer, and
Yennefer Yennefer's like a nice mention, like a little nod.
Honorable mention.
Okay, so she doesn't make the list, but she almost made your list.
Yeah, but I don't want to rank women either, like, you know. But I mean,
I'm not asking you. Excuse you. Before this becomes the narrative, I never said rank women here. Okay, we are talking about sexiest people. Okay, as long as they're not an animal or a mineral, we're covered. Okay. And they can be an animal if that's your thing. I don't care. But is that your list? So we have Miranda, we have Jack, and we have Eva.
Yes.
Awesome.
Honorable mention the Pikachu for
the one with the heart tail specifically. Ooh. Shane, what about you? If I had to give you gun to your head, give me 3 names in video games that not necessarily lights your fire. It can light your fire, but you can just look at them and go, they're just unarguably the sexiest people in video games. Who would you say?
Yeah, Geralt Rivia. Of course.
I was going to say something similar. Yeah, he smolders.
That man oozes sex appeal. Minecraft Steve.
Wow.
No, I'm only messing. That's a joke.
I couldn't wait for the explanation.
Yeah, no, that's a pure joke. Sadie Adler from Red Dead Redemption.
Oh, good choice.
2.
Good choice.
Yeah. And just for the pure boyhood, like, nostalgia, kind of, you know, sexual awakenings that happened, like Chun-Li from Street Fighter.
Those ties, man. Those ties don't lie.
Yeah. And there you go. There's 3 for you now.
So Geralt of Rivia.
Yeah, that man just, I don't care whether you're gay, straight, or whatever, like, that man oozes sex appeal.
Absolutely.
You know what? For me, just doesn't do it for me. Even Henry Cavill is just like, yeah, he's all right. Yeah, I know that's a really unpopular opinion, and everyone's going to be like,
unbelievably unpopular.
My girlfriend is currently like jumping in the car now to come strangle you at your house.
I can hear mine stomping around at the moment, like she's just losing it.
My girlfand's doing the same. She has a life-size cutout at home, like.
And we have lost probably all of our female demographic, which I wish was higher, if anything. But yeah, like, it's to each their own. But I will say this is that I'm part of the Witcher, Facebook group or whatever, back before there was a show, and then the show came around, and since that show 2 years ago or 3 years ago came around, it has devolved down to nothing but Henry Cavill pictures, both in Witcher form and not. It is just Henry Cavill all day, and every day I open up my phone, I'm just bombarded with Henry Cavill pictures, and I'm not unsubscribing. I'm not saying I'm not with it. I'm not saying I'm not enjoying it. It is what it is. But yeah, it does seem as if you're very much a man on an island when it comes to that opinion.
I know, I really am. I mean, like, he's not a bad looking guy. It's not like he obviously has sex appeal, but just for me, I wouldn't do it.
He's the king of the nerds, though. Like, you can't be that big, powerful, and good looking, and also know stuff about World of Warcraft and building PCs, and still be a human being. There's just something magical about that man. Anyway, but specifically, we're talking about game Geralt here. Now, Geralt, Sadie Adler, and Chun-Li.
Yeah.
Okay. For me, we talked about her earlier. My number 3 choice would probably be Bayonetta, because that's what she's designed to be. I don't care whether it's your thing or not. Like, she's just unequivocally like sex epitomized in gaming, I feel like, and it's done in that way that isn't sleazy, as I mentioned, but it's borderline. It's so close to that, which kind of makes it even sexier. I don't know why.
Taboo, I think is the word.
Taboo, that's it. Yeah,
that's
it. I think that Yennefer of Vengerberg is definitely up there. She's definitely my romance choice, like, every time in The Witcher. That's why I can never make the whole Trinity happen, because I'm just like, Yennefer's my girl. What can I do about this? Sorry, Triss. You're lovely, but and then of course, number 1 I'm struggling between. So I'm gonna throw it out here. I think right? I think it might be Solid Snake.
Do you know, whenever I said Eva, and then whenever you said, Mr. Witcherman, Geralt, I was like, Solid Snake is quite good. And then I was like, maybe it's his Snake and all his clones in general. I mean, like, he was that good looking to clone them how many times?
That's the thing, you see. And like, I don't know. It's like, and again, I am a cis white male. Like, there is no problems in any other sexuality when I say this, but my own preference is heterosexual. So it's not from a very like, I want to jump his bones perspective. But I'm like, whenever there is a game like Metal Gear 3, Metal Gear 4, even like some moments in Metal Gear 5, like when you see whatever incarnation of Snake you're dealing with at that time, it can be old Snake, it can be young Snake, it can be Big Boss, whichever. Like, there is always moments where you're kind of seeing him like, disarmed or whatever, and like his perfectly cut body and all this kind of stuff. And it's just like all the women are swooning or whatever. Like, I don't know. There's just something about it. I don't know. I can appreciate it from afar. And
that voice as well is so. I think we should get a clip for that
yes.
for the episode. Metal Gear.
It's true, actually. Yeah, you're
that
not wrong.
That opening of like Metal Gear Solid 3 was like back in 1960, and the world was split into two.
That was actually really good.
That
was really good.
Voice,
It's true, and then the Snake Plissken mullet in Metal Gear 2. Like, what can you do? What can you do? Anyway, but that's why I was torn between him, and I was actually going to say Geralt as well. But I think that game Geralt, his sexiness, the allure of that has been diminished somewhat by Henry Cavill's existence. But this is that. So, just to recap, it was Bayonetta, Yennefer, and I'm gonna have to pick one. I suppose it's probably Big Boss from Metal Gear 3, or Old Snake. I like a guy with grays like myself. Anyway, that in mind. So just throwing it around. So now me and Shane, we're gonna just look at you now, Buzz, and we're gonna say, right, Shane. Even Buzz, tell me and Shane what your three were again, so that we can kind of converse here.
My tree at number 1 was Miranda Lawson. Number 2, we have Jack, also from Mass Effect, no second name. And in third place, Eva from Metal Gear Solid 3.
Good stuff. Now, Shane, you're not a big Mass Effect guy, so do you know who the first two are?
Not really.
Okay.
I can Google them.
Yeah. Whilst you're Googling them, the Miranda character is very much like Mass Effect Yennefer in a lot of ways. Very tight lycra outfit, a lot of ass, a lot of cleave, but a good heart. A rogue with a good heart. Jack, however, is a no-nonsense kind of punk, cyber punk, I guess.
Yeah, I'm literally looking at a picture here as we speak. I have Miranda, I have Jack, and who was the third?
It was Eva from Metal Gear 3, the blonde.
Oh, sorry,
spy.
yeah, sorry. The third one wasn't Mass Effect. Apologies. Yeah, I have Jack and Miranda Lawson here in front of me. I can see both of them. Yeah, you're dead right. Miranda is very much a Yennefer style.
Yennefer in space.
Character.
Yennefer in space.
Jack does look like someone more like you'd expect to see in like cyberpunk or something.
Yeah.
See, I think this could be a complete rumor, but I actually think that Jack's model was kind of based off of Megan Fox.
Really?
I have a feeling I've either read that somewhere or seen it before. I don't know the source, if it holds any truth. And then I kind of saw it whenever Megan Fox kind of shaved her head back in 2012, whatever, or 2013, or whatever year it was. And I was like, damn, yeah, I kind of see it. But yeah, so that's just a little bit of like extra modeling stuff there if you want to give a perception in your head in real life.
That might tip the scales. Shane, I'm going to come out and say my pick is Eva straight away. Like if I had to like objectively say, right, which of those three, like she nearly made my number one. Like she was the. I had to give it to Snake though.
Well, yeah, no, I'd be inclined to agree with you because, like I said, I'm not much of a Mass Effect guy, so I have more of a relationship with Eva, I suppose.
It's burning
compared to
Yeah, so it's a
compared to,
relationship
I
thing.
know.
So from a sheer objective visual sexiness thing, what would you say? Because like even in that, I'm more on the Eva side.
Yeah, actually, me too. Now that I give myself a quick Google reminder of Eva, and yeah, no, me too. I'm more on the. Sorry, Buzz, but you've been outvoted here.
It's not even a vote. It's not even a vote just
yeah.
yet. Like this is very much like we will vote on the last one. Let's say if that works, if you can really do that with 3 things and 3 people. But like, you know, it is up to you. Who do you want to put forward first? But like, this is just our chance to kind of come in and give our opinions and what we would think of your 3s. But like the choice for which one of the 3 you're putting forward is completely up to you.
No, of course.
But the opinion on our side seems to very much be on Eva, and I guess it's just an aesthetic thing, but it's also, even though Shane hasn't played them, I have, there's just something alluring about Eva, you know what I mean? She's just got it. She's got it. Yes, baby, she's got it.
And she's a badass too, you know. She's got that. All 3 of mine think have that little bit of a badass edge to them. Yeah. So.
Yeah, but only one of them can do sick tricks with like a 1950s motorbike and stuff. Yeah. But Buzz, who are you going to put forward in your top 3?
I will put forward Eva based on the gentleman's.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Now don't put it forward. Don't put it forward just because we're out here, you know, talking smack. You know, it is whomever you think should be there, and you should convince us if you feel like it shouldn't be that.
All right, okay, well then I have to put forward Miranda then, because I have to.
Yeah, well, stick by your guns. You got a fucking mug.
have to stick true to my guns that I've done for the last 11 years. You know, like there's not much more I can say.
That's fair.
But yeah, I would say like personality wise, I mean like, you know, the you know, heart of gold really under a tough exterior, and a beautiful exterior too. Great dress sense, great humor. You know, that dark raven hair. Oh yes, and God, this is cringy, lads.
Would you like a moment alone with our audience? Would you like us to just leave the call?
That mankini's getting very tight.
And that Australian accent too. You know, gosh, that Australian accent.
I'll give you that. No, she definitely is. If I had to pick a character in Mass Effect, I think I would 100% pick Miranda too. She's my type, I guess. But like objectively, I would say as well, yeah, for sure. Okay, so we have Miranda in this corner. Shane, remind us of your 3 once more, please.
Geralt of Rivia, Game Geralt, not Henry Cavill Geralt. Sadie Adler from Red Dead Redemption, and Chun-Li from Street Fighter.
Awesome. Buzz, what do you think, man? Of those 3, what jumps out at you, dude?
Yeah, I'm thinking Geralt. Chun-Li never really did it for me, and Sadie Adler, yeah, maybe, but no. So I think Geralt for me.
Yeah, Sadie's from Red Dead 2, isn't she? She's like she becomes the cowboy at the end. Yeah, she's like our cow person. She has that kind of rough and tumble, you know, hard ass appeal, I guess. But I agree, she doesn't like scream sexuality, and I think that's kind of part of her charm, is that she is a strong woman who doesn't scream sexuality, you know, which is lovely, and it stands to her. But yeah, I don't know if that of the 3 there, Chun-Li is interesting. Like that's like another, that's like splitting the difference between Sadie Adler and Bayonetta right there, where it's just like, no, she has to be a hard ass, she has to be believable, she's not going to show too much skin, but we do want to point out those thick ass thighs and like really, really go down that road. Chun-Li is interesting. But then you've got Geralt of Rivia, who I think ticks all the boxes in terms of is conventionally good looking, I guess. You spend so much time that gets paid off in the long run, like learning about his character and his appeal and his turn-ons and turn-offs and the unicorn and all that type of stuff. It's lovely. Yeah, I think of the 3 you picked, Geralt is definitely the epitome of sex if you're putting the 3 of them into a ring, like, you know.
Yeah.
What do you think?
For me, like, I'll be honest, I'm gonna remove Chun-Li straight away, because Chun-Li was on my list as more of a boyhood, you know, coming of age. Look at those thighs.
There's nothing wrong with that, man. Whatever came to your mind is fucking natural.
That's
dude.
it. So it is between Sadie and Geralt, and they're similar in a lot of ways. They're very rough and tumble, can look after themselves. Like, I feel like if I lived in a cabin with Sadie, she could go and like get me some rabbit for dinner or something by just picking up the rifle and walking out the door. And a strong woman who can take care of herself,
which is sexy in itself.
Yes, exactly. And then, well, Geralt is kind of like the male version, really, except he hunts dragons and monsters and whatnot, which is totally badass and cool. So I think I'm going to go with Geralt just because I really like fantasy stuff, and he like fights dragons and monsters and has a big, massive sword.
And he's into unicorns.
Yes.
And if you put Geralt into Souls, like any of the Soulsborne games, would that be like your ultimate like fantasy?
Wow, that's the Venn diagram right there. You got him.
Yeah.
You got him.
Yeah. Geralt working his way down through Anor Londo to fight Ornstein and Smaug.
There has to be a mod out there. There has to be.
Probably.
Yeah.
Oh, you probably just mod him. Like, all the crazy stuff that's happening with God of War on PC at the moment, I'm sure someone could just mod him into...
But not even just like a visual mod, but like literally taking the art and the character and the movements and everything from The Witcher and putting them into Dark Souls in a way that would work. Like, you've got such a range of moves that don't seem out of place. You know what I mean? Anyway, look, that's another topic for another show. So then we're down to me, I guess. And who did I pick again? Bayonetta. Big Boss.
Yeah.
And I can't remember who I picked for my third.
I think it was Yennefer, was it?
It was Yennefer. Thank you so much.
It was Yennefer.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I'm going to throw it to you guys first. What do you
think? Well, one of your... you said... Did you say Geralt? No, you didn't say Geralt, did you?
I said I nearly said Geralt, but Big Boss topped him.
Because I was just about to say that one of your picks was my top pick, so that would obviously make... But no, you wasn't. Yeah, Yennefer's a good show, you know. They really are like video game power couple, Yennefer and Geralt, aren't
Absolutely,
they?
yeah.
They're
power
like
and grace. You know, like in one person.
Beyonce and Jay-Z or some shit like that.
The Beyonce and Jay-Z of the dragon fighting world, yes.
Yeah, and what was it? Bayonetta and Big Boss.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, there's something about a man in uniform too, like, you know what I mean?
You know when you're in the pause screen and you're like healing his wounds and he's got the bandages on, but he's ripped as shit, you know?
Yeah.
You're taking eels off him and he's just like, yeah, you know?
Yeah, there is something about a man in uniform. No, do you know what? I'm going with Yennefer. I'm going with Yennefer for the power couple.
I can see it. What about you, Buzz?
It's a very tough competition between Big Boss and Yennefer for me. And you know, as we have said before, Miranda's pretty much just Yennefer in space.
This is true.
So,
Fantasy Miranda.
I think I'm gonna go with Fantasy Miranda. Yeah, Yennefer's my vote cast there too.
Yeah, that sounded like an easy competition there. Yeah, for me, it's tough because the objective part of me wants to say Big Boss because it's so subtly played, his sexuality throughout, like even Solid Snake and Dead Snake, whatever he's called in the fifth one, you know, like it's never really like front focus of his sexuality is like put out there, but it's just something about him, god damn it, like, you know, that man in uniform and stoicness, and he does it for his country and the love of the boss. But at the same time, my heart and my loins ache for Yennefer. So what can a man do? No. But seriously, I think in terms of like sexiest, how much does that weigh? Like, do we weigh whoever we think is genuinely like just front-facing sexy higher than somebody who is like smoldering under the surface sexy? You know, like which, if you put both on a scale, which one is heaviest? You know, it's hard to make that call. I think it's like a razor's edge situation between Big Boss and Yennefer, and I think I'm going to go with Yennefer. I think I am. I think I'm going to go with Yennefer. But like, I have trepidation. I'll wake up in the middle of the night going, "I'm sorry, boss." You know. But cobras, Big Boss. But yeah, I think. Sorry, audio listeners. I think it's going to be Yennefer for me for sure. So this is our top three, okay, and we have to duke it out now for the top. Okay, so this is where the gloves come off, folks. Okay, so we have Miranda, we have Yennefer, and we have. Did you say Geralt?
Geralt, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I went with Geralt in the end. Yeah.
Wow, 2 Witcher characters, and one that's Space Witcher character. So, right, closing argument. Buzz, tell us why Miranda should be the sexiest, and the way we're going to work this is whomever, including if it's your own, gave the best closing argument is who will probably try and cast our votes towards or whatever, you know.
Absolutely, sounds good. Yeah, so I think part of it is that, you know, she's obviously one of the just sexiest characters ever made. You know, she's modelled after an actual actress called Yvonne Strahovski, I think is her name. I can't pronounce it properly, but she's
didn't know that.
An Australian actress who was in Handmaid's Tale and I think Chuck as well, maybe, or something. A good few things as well. Like, and she's obviously a very attractive woman herself. Weirdly, I think Miranda's better looking. I don't know what that says with me, but yeah, I mean, like, you know, she's just, you know, everything from the accent, her demeanor, her power, her. Just yeah, I mean, like, God, she's in skin tight latex for pretty much the entire thing. I mean, like, it's just, it does things to me, man.
I got it. All right, so that's our argument for Miranda. Jane, do you want to go next or shall I?
I'll go. What? I think I have decent closing arguments for Geralt. Number one, a lot of skin tight leather. You know,
absolutely, yeah.
Bowe, tell me more.
Nobody's denying that.
Geralt of Rivia is a man who could, you know, he could go out, he could cut the head off a dragon, take that dragon back to town, trade it in for whatever gold bounty was on its head, and then, like, I don't know, throw you down in the hay while still covered in dragon blood, and you'd love every minute of it.
I can't say you're wrong.
There you go.
It's very true. And what stands out about Geralt to you, especially, like?
I don't know. He just kind of oozes manliness, doesn't he? Like, you know, he's just like, I am man. I kill monsters for money. I am, you know, and he's very like, man.
Which lights your world on fire.
Apparently so, yeah. Apparently that gets me going. Maybe I need to have a conversation with my fiance.
Maybe you just need to have a more open relationship. Who knows? It's a whole new world after this podcast, ladies and gentlemen. But yeah, so no, it's a good argument. I think Geralt kind of speaks for himself. Much like Yennefer, I think Yennefer kind of speaks for herself in a lot of ways. In her own game, she is portrayed as like the epitome of beauty, you know, like, and that's done through means of magic. You know, she has done that to herself in order to make herself as powerful as humanly possible, both through the power of her magic, but also the power of persuasion from her looks. You know, the whole lilac and gooseberries thing. You know, she walks into a room and the room falls in love with her. It's all very done on purpose, you know. And Geralt being the only person who can kind of see through the bullshit after being first swooned by that, you know, he's pretty much the only real relationship that's a man that she has. And even women fall at her feet and blah, 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 blah. But for me, what you know attracts me there is, you know, from a looks perspective, of course, is there. You know, you were saying the leather, like, it's the same thing. There's kind of like the bustiers and, you know, tights and all that type of stuff. Like the fashion is on point, let's say. But it's also it's the power, it's the drive for power, it's the commanding tones. She's been alive for something close to like 1,000 years, so you know she's experienced. You know, there is a lot of good reasons here, you know.
I'm gonna get fired after this. Like, Jesus.
But hey, yeah, like, these are things you gotta consider when you think about sex, you know. Not whether that's a bad or a good thing, who knows. But yeah, they're kind of the reasons why I think that, like, she edged out my own selections, you know.
Yeah, she edged them out.
She aged them out, yes, indeed. But yeah, that is that. So, right, I guess I'm gonna have to ask for personal votes, and then I guess if we're just picking our own, is that the best way to do it? Because if we just pick our own things each, how do we settle it?
I think we should not have a vote. We have to exclude ourselves, and we have to vote for one or the other. two.
That's actually a good idea. Good idea. Yeah. So who are you liking of the other two? Yeah.
It's gotta be fantasy Yennefer for me anyway.
But you're picking your own thing. Oh, sorry, no, you don't. You're thinking space Yennefer. Sorry. Fantasy Yennefer.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're going for Yennefer. Okay. Between Miranda and Yennefer, then Bowe. Oh, wait, actually, I'll go first. I'll go first just because I can kind of predict it because you're not a Mass Effect guy. Between Miranda and Geralt, I would like to say Miranda because I personally am more attracted to Miranda, but given my preference, but I have to say there's a reason Henry Cavill is oozing the way he does on that character. It's because it's a built-in sexuality. Like I think Geralt does have that pull, for good reason.
Yeah. So I'm gonna drop a shocker on you here now.
That's fine.
So based off of me and you, Phil, like I know I can't vote for my own, but me and you, Phil, we get very, I'm gonna say, clinical, logical explanations, but Buzz felt it in his soul. Like I could see that on his face.
He did.
So I have to give it to Miranda for his, like, he sold it. He felt it deep down in his heart.
There we go.
Genetically engineered as well. Like,
look, he's still going. He still doesn't stop.
He gave me the side eye for saying that she was experienced from age, and he's talking about genetically engineering for her. but no, absolutely no. It's completely fair, especially if we're going off of arguments. You could see the twinkle in his eye. We merely thought of characters and implanted our opinions and our clinical cynicisms upon them. This man brought a cup to the argument. What are we gonna do about it? I think that's it. So this is episode number 69, and the crowned queen of episode 69, the sexiest character in video games, according to us three white guys in our rooms talking into microphones, is Miranda of Mass Effect 2 and also 3.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. 2 and 3, ladies and gentlemen. Ring that thing. Shane, put a picture over here somewhere. And Aaron, if you can play a little voice clip of her, that'll be lovely. But anyway, that has been it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for sticking with us for the entirety of this podcast. I will go around and ask everybody what they're doing at the moment. But first of all, if you want to support the podcast, you can do so in a number of ways. Check the description below for our socials. Follow us at Facebook, the Casual Game Community, on our Instagram and Twitter at Casual Game Co. And, just tell a friend, tell whoever, and we will tell you someone very specific to tell about this podcast at the very end. But before I do that, Shane, I'm assuming the best place to find you is here on this podcast?
Yep, you'll find me here on this podcast doing the Casual Game thing. You'll find me on the Facebook Casual Game Community, chatting sometimes, posting memes or whatever, the usual crack, but mainly right here on this podcast. Sick right here, look, memes. You can see me. This is me, memes. Right here. And then some sick memes.
Ciaran, my man, where can people find you?
Yes, people can find me again here on this podcast weekly on Thursdays, talking about who's the sexiest person in the world, which I constantly bring up.
It's going to be a recurring topic every month. Every week we have to talk about it. Yeah. But anything else?
Yeah, of course, yeah. You can follow me on all my socials. It's at CAO Busby on Twitch, Buzz_the BETTV, and of course, you can find Legion Arena, which just launched tonight. That's kind of why I'm dressed up as well. But just get the cheeky wee plug in there for the new Twitch.
Absolutely. Give it a bigger plug by all means. I stopped by to give the support as well, but even I don't know as much as I could know about it. So please, by all means, the floor is yours for a minute or two.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so very, very quickly and briefly, Legion Arena is the home of 3 different brands in Ireland: Legion Esports, Legion Creators, and Legion Collegiate. Esports is obviously a series of tournaments sponsored by a couple of grand sponsors, which I won't say here, but that they really get behind casual esports and getting that grassroots up. Some of the pro players in Ireland. Then Collegiate is very much just esports for colleges. And Creators then is their affiliated kind of and partnered streamers and creators in Ireland, and we're going to be doing a lot with them. And yeah, do you know what I mean? Like, look, if you want to go follow Legion Arena TT or Legion Arena GG on Twitch, and you'll see what we're up to.
Absolutely wonderful, and congratulations on you and all the team that worked on that. It seemed to be a massive success, so well done, and always great to see that, especially here in Ireland. Now, with that, we are going to leave you guys. But as per usual, we have to recommend somebody that you are going to tell about the podcast. First of all, tell your friends. And this is actually a new request I have for everybody. We've always said if you can, rate the podcast on your podcatcher of choice. Generally, that's Podcast Addict and Apple Podcasts that allow you to do that. However, Spotify have turned their reviews back on, baby. So if you are listening to this on Spotify, please do pop down, give us 5 stars, and you can say whatever you want after that. You can damn me to the end of the world, but as long as you give us 5 stars, I will love you, whatever. But with that, if you could, tell your local, it's a sexy podcast, so what should we say? I was going to tell you local sex worker, but maybe that's not kosher.
Sex shop.
Perfect. Wherever you get fine wares for sexual activities, go down and tell the manner of the keep about the Casual Gamecast, and maybe could put up a little poster in the window and we'll get associated. Maybe we'll get a branding deal, who knows. But could you imagine the CGC branded dildo? It's a whole thing. It's gonna come. Rewind. Get out of here. Right, folks, that's it. This has been the Casual Gamecast. Thank you so much for joining us. Stay safe, be careful, and of course, stay casual. Good luck.